right, welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name's Andrew. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I'm really, really excited for this episode, number 42. And we have a really special guest. I'm going to let Mitch introduce him.
Welcome back, episode 42. My name's Mitch. I'm an alcoholic addict. Another one of my homies coming on today. We got Bebe Wang coming on. It is Wang, right?
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
okay, yeah. So we called him Bebe Wang for a long time, but it is Wang. And no, Bebe was and has been one of my best friends for a long time since, especially since I came back to Denison and got sober. We started to become closer and closer, and then ended up living together our senior year. And I learned a lot of my like scheduling and shit that I didn't really enact until like recently from him, from watching him and how regimented he is. And he's currently in doctorate program at Purdue. And I mean, he's just an absolute beast. I've always looked to him for his swimming prowess and how hard he worked at swimming, how hard he worked at school. He just gets stuff done, and he's just one of my besides all the accolades and stuff like that, he's someone that I've always turned to and talked to. And super happy to have you on today, my boy,
Yes,
Bebe.
sir. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, like Mitch said, you're really close, best friends from school, and I'm glad to have seen you grow throughout those 4 years and continue to do what you're doing now. And I'm, very proud of you and what you're doing. And yeah, excited for this episode, this discussion, and let's get into it. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir.
baby, I got a question for you. Usually, Mitch asks this question, but we ask every one of our guests. I'm not sure if you've heard, a guest pod that we've done. So, Mitch came up with this question just to kind of start, and really kind of explore right off the bat where our guest heads at. So when you think of an alcoholic or an addict, when those words are said, what image comes to mind? What kind of person? What kind of background? What do you think of?
Yeah. So disclaimer, I've watched a good amount of your episodes, so I have heard that question come across. But
He's cheating.
I know I cheat at everything, but no, that's all right. So yeah, my perspective has changed from watching the podcast and hearing your guys' thoughts and opinions on all of it. But I would say before all that, before I started watching the podcast, if you had asked me that question, I guess only one thing kind of really stands out in my mind, and it was from high school health high school health class where we did this like drugs and alcohol unit, and we go into class one day and the TV's on, and like, hell yeah, dude, there's no class, we're gonna watch whatever we're watching. And I think the teacher put on, I forget what it was called, it might have been the TLC show, but it was a show about like alcoholics and addiction. And basically like this lady on that show had severe alcoholism, where if she wasn't drinking liters of wine every day, she died because she had a extreme physical dependence on it. And so like they showed the scene where she's opening up her fridge in the morning, first thing in the morning, and there's like, I kid you not, like 6 or 7 milk jug gallons filled of wine uh, in that fridge, and she just takes a cup out and downs it like a glass of orange juice. So I'd say if you asked me that question before I started watching your podcast, it'd be someone who is at that level of uncontrollableness, like at that extreme where you have to have this huge physical dependence on drugs or alcohol. And I guess that's what I was taught in high school health. That kind of imagery has stuck in my head that whole time. And I know that from what you guys are doing, that perspective in me has changed a little bit in terms of thinking about addiction and alcoholism in a different light. But I think a lot of other people also have that same kind of imagery in their head, where it's like you see these, alcoholics or drug addicts at the gas station at the extremes, and they're like, I'm not like that, so that's not me. I'm not an addict or whatever. So that would be the kind of imagery that I have.
Yeah, and it's sad. Like it's I don't know if you know Chris Heron. It's a guy I work for. It's the place that I work at, and um he's a public speaker now, and he tries to kind of change that image a little bit, because like we have this image, like for me, my image was similar to you, where I had seen it like in TV, social media. And I had this image of like a homeless man or like a guy under a bridge drinking, whiskey out of a bottle in a paper bag. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, I think like the perspective change that Chris is going for, and that I think partially we, on this podcast, Mitch, you can comment on this, but like we talk about the worst case scenario and the worst day of addiction, and we never really put any spotlight on the first day and like the first steps of it and the early onset of it, and how it looks in the beginning. So I think your idea of what it is just is a perfect illustration of that. Like we have all these intense, like kind of gruesome images of what the disease looks like, where a lot of the times it's like a college athlete in Mitch's case, or an NBA player in Chris Herron's case, or a regular, a person working a 9 to 5, like that. It's kind of crazy. Mitch, what do you think?
I agree. I think the thing that comes to mind too for me is like, at what point, from an outside perspective looking in, do other people start to think that that person has a problem? And then on the flip side, like at what point, from your perspective as the addict or alcoholic, do you think that it's a problem? Because it's kind of like the levels of consequences in the bottom. Like, do you have to be like that woman that Bebe was talking about, have a fridge stocked with wine and like drinking all day 24/7, that's all you can do? Or does it look like where I was at with the drinking? Like I had other stuff, but I wasn't necessarily drinking every day, but binge drinking multiple days or whatever. So it's like, at what point is it a problem? I think that question is like so personal. I mean, I've met like kids that got sober at like 16, 17 and younger and stuff like that like I don't know. I mean, I've met a dude one time that never drank, and both his parents were addicts and alcoholics. I think he had cousins, and his brother was, and they were all in the program, and he just joined the program and never drank, and he said that he had all the alcoholic tendencies. And that blew my mind and still does. But it's like, I don't know. I guess it's just the interesting part to me is when you decide to, when the person decides to make it a choice to stop. I don't know. What
Yeah,
I'm
or
trying
like
to
I
say.
don't know. You guys have said a bunch of times in your podcast in the past where it's like you can tell someone else as many times as you need to, like, hey, like I think you have a problem, whatever. But it's up to that person to decide whether or not they feel like they have a problem and what their idea of a problem really is. And so I think like when a lot of people see this imagery, this kind of like um, ethereal, sort of like very visceral imagery of addicts and alcoholics, that's kind of their definition in their mind. That's what they've essentially been taught to think about addicts and alcoholics. And in their mind, there's like, they kind of refuse to accept that anything other than that is addiction or
Yeah.
that they have a problem. So
It's kind of like trying to bridge the gap between like looking at like there's the tons of homeless people here in LA, and it's like trying to bridge the gap on someone that doesn't fully understand it between that's someone struggling severely with mental health and substance abuse, and then like someone that works a 9 to 5 could also be struggling severely with mental health and substance abuse, and trying to blend those together. Because I feel like the addict, it's interesting because the term addict, I think the reason we asked that is because it's almost everyone ties it to imagery. We've had a couple people talk about like the mental state of that, or like the dependency on a substance and stuff like that. But almost everyone ties, when you say addict or alcoholic, to an image. And I was one of those too, which is interesting because I think that just shows how ingrained that like programming is for like, if you're an addict or an alcoholic, that's where you go, And so I think that actually inhibits growth and inhibits the ability to admit that you are an alcoholic or an alcoholic younger, because I mean, even me, I was like, I'm not that. I think a ton of people do that. It's like, I'm not homeless, I still check those boxes. I go to class sometimes. I have a job. I have a girlfriend, boyfriend. I have this, And so because of that, there's no way that I'm an alcoholic or an addict, because an alcoholic or an addict, their world is on fire. And, it doesn't have to get to that point, I think is the main thing, kind of what Chris Heron is talking about too, is like, this is something that can be stopped early. And I think that's also something that Andrew and I thought about when like starting this podcast, is that it's like we both got sober younger, and so trying to show that can happen now. Had we kept running and gunning, like, I'm sure that we could have gotten to wherever. Welcome back to the PMR podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy this week.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
we
so,
got. Go ahead, baby.
I was going to say, I have a question for you guys then along that lines is, you want to start this kind of education process early. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you think you would do that, because on one end, the earlier you start, right, I guess the better it would be at preventing or at least educating younger people on this topic, but they might not be able to understand all the subtleties and the complexities of what you guys are trying to get out there. And then on the other hand, the later you start, you give people more time to experience that themselves, but then with the caveat of, they might have to go through some of these troubles themselves to experience it and learn from it. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how you think you could start educating at a younger age, what the most effective way to do that is.
So I'll start. I mean, I'm not an expert on education, right? I'm not. I think honestly, you probably have more information there. It looks like you've put some thought into it. But my initial thought is like I think we need to change the way that we frame alcohol, like in drug use. I think it's like an elephant in the room in a lot of households, and a lot of family dynamics, a lot of social dynamics. It's like, in high school, what do the cool kids do? Like, and what are the and what are the kids who are in the in crowd? And if you're gonna have a good time, what do you need? You need beers, you need liquor, you need weed. Like,
Mhm.
and in some cases, more, extreme cases, you need narcotics, blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
So that's like a frame of reference that I don't think it's. I mean, we all three of us know that to just tell somebody that it's wrong and they shouldn't do it, that doesn't work. Like, because that makes people like me want to do it more. Like, if you
Yeah.
tell me it's wrong and that I shouldn't do it and that it's unhealthy and that I'm going to screw up my life, then when I'm in that frame of mind, especially as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, I want to do it more. Even as a middle schooler, if you tell me never do this, like I remember in Dare, they were like, weed is a gateway drug, and if you smoke weed, you're going to end up doing this, this, and this. And it almost made me curious as to like, I wonder what makes it so intense, or a gateway, or what. Like, so the way that I think it needs to be discussed is like, if you're with your friends, what I wish somebody sat down with me and said is like, hey, Andrew, like, if you're with your friends, why do you feel the need to alter yourself?
Mm.
Like, why do you feel the need when you're with people that you grew up with since you were 6 years old like that you've known most of your life, why do you feel the need, like in here and in here, to change yourself and to be like a different version of yourself? Like I don't think I don't think it's effective to just be like, Andrew, you fucked up, you did something wrong, you broke the rules, broke the law, you like that doesn't work, didn't work on me. um I think like compassion and empathy from like an educational standpoint is key, and that would have made me really uncomfortable if somebody sat me down and said, Andrew, why do you feel the need to smoke weed when you're with like your basketball teammates? Like you love those guys. Like why do you feel like you need to be in a different headspace and that you need to be different? Like are you like what's going on in your head and in your heart that makes it so difficult for you to just be you?
Mhm.
Like, and I think it's like some people might respond like, well, because it's fun to be effed up. But in a in a more serious level, it asks like a very serious question, I think, of like what, like are we able to love ourselves? Like are we able to just love the way we are naturally? Are we able to like embrace that and to be that authentic self? Um and that, I think that would have made me question a little bit more, like, why do I need to do this?
Mhm.
Is it because it's fun, or is it because I'm really, really uncomfortable with myself to the point where like I hate myself? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Mitch, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's also it's really hard, I think, to convince or talk to someone like 20 or under or 25 and under and be like, this is a problem, and it's so consequence based and it's so personal too. It's like if you meet someone that's like 22 and they've been drinking like that for a while, but they don't think they've faced any consequences, it's really like, really hard to get through, and you don't want to be that person where you're like shaking your finger at them. I agree with you on that 100%. I don't think that works at all. I think that I think two things. I think it's like, the question I have is like, can you convince someone that hasn't someone early in addiction, like, let's say like high school, 16, 17, 18, someone early in addiction, that they have a problem and that maybe they should try stopping now, or is the better strategy maybe to like provide the resources if they come to a point, like plant those seeds, we like to say, of recovery or AA and treatment or whatever, so that if there comes a point where they do decide that they have a problem, maybe a couple years later down the line, then they maybe act on that. I think it's I'm just not sure that, because I was so defiant and so my way and so like fuck everything, that like whenever any of those, we had those talks in high school, or my friends said, I think you have a problem, or my mentor said, I think you have a problem, or my mom or whatever, it was always very much like the middle finger was my response. And I was just reassured in my head continually that I'm fine. I mean, I think like even when we went and talked to the high school that I went and talked to like a couple of weeks ago, I could kind of tell the kids that, especially the seniors, that when we talked about certain things, kind of shelled up or just glossed over on that, and we're not willing to talk about that to us. And it's like, especially since we're not gonna, they didn't feel comfortable talking about that with like these three guys that just pulled up to their high school. I think it's also, it's just so, I don't know, I'm always like blown away when I see people get sober, like in high school or something like that, or like when I hear like Kaylee when she was on, like getting sober for the first time at like 17 or something. Like I think that's like, uh I don't know, what do you guys think is the, like,
Well,
do you think that you can convince someone that young, if they haven't faced enough consequences, do you think you can get through to them?
no, like, and baby, I'd curious to hear your opinion as well. But my initial, just quick thought is like, no, like, no, I agree with you. But also, I think, like, not to, toot our own fucking horn here, but like, people early in this thing need to see success stories. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not, I'm sober today. That's great. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I hope by the grace of God I could stay sober tomorrow as well. But like, I'm not saying I'm a crazy success story or anything, but I got 2 years sober. You got 6 years. So like, we are working a program, and it's working for us. And like, again, like, not to be self-centered or egotistical, but I don't think either one of us is like some just boring dude like who just stopped drinking and stopped having fun. Like, I think young people, I wish I had seen, because at 18, 19 years old, when I'm really starting to get into this and I'm starting to see, like, because there was a switch, right, that happens where it's like fun, 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 and then it's like, oh fuck, this is a job and a chore, and this is like really starting to negatively impact every aspect of my life. And when that started to happen, the fun started to switch to like that side. I wish what I had seen was people, young people who came from the same problems that I had and stopped using, but kept like being a young dude. You know what I mean? Like, kept being like, didn't just turn into an old, like a boring vanilla,
Yeah.
not do anything with their time besides just, stay clean. Um, and I'm glad that where I went for treatment, like, there were those examples for me, or I don't think I would have got this, so far. Like, I saw people who were sober in their 20s who were having fun with their lives and going on trips and still being kids. Like, that I think is such a myth for young people, like, who are using, like, party culture in college, everything else. Like, yeah, if I stop drinking, if I stop smoking, if I stop snorting, if I stop whatever, then like, I'm just gonna be some boring shit. Like, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you guys. First, on Mitch's point, I also think no, that unless there are consequences, I don't think that young people can really understand what they're putting themselves through, because uh, the more I've been in the real world, well, real world, I'm in grad school, but more or less, the more I realize that you can get away with a lot of things, like a lot, and like other people kind of don't really care what you're doing as much as they should, or as much as you should. So you are really the primary agent in directing where your life goes. Um, and if you think you can get away with a lot of these things without many consequences, or you have this problem and you're still living, like Mitch, like you said before, you're still living a good life, you're going to class, whatever, you're doing all these good things, then people themselves aren't going to see what they're doing as a problem, until they face like a wall where there's a consequence, where you get arrested or something. I don't know, right? Um, and so on that point, yeah, I do think there needs to be some. I don't think you have to kind of scare these kids, but it's more like you have to get them to realize that their goals and their like life and career ambitions are kind of bigger than having fun on a weekend or something, right? Getting fucked up on a weekend. And if you want to, you gotta look at your end goal, right? You have a goal for what you want to get out of your life. And the people who are sober or young are just kind of reevaluating their life goals and trying to get to that point on their own, and like kind of enjoy living life, enjoy the present moment, right? Present moment recovery. And so I think, a lot of young people, they don't have that much experience out in the real world, or they're doing what, like 6-7 hours of school a day in, middle school, high school, right? It's more like, I guess, in high school and middle school, that to them it feels like the only way that they can have fun. So
Mm.
that's what I think.
I,
And
you're
yeah,
good.
yeah, no, you're good. Go on.
I was just gonna say I like what Andrew said about like asking the question interpersonally, why do you feel the need to use like that substance? I think that one worked on me when that was told to me because I was like, why am I fucking doing all this shit like all the fucking time, all day? Why do I need that? And I think also it's like what I was gonna ask you guys again too was like it's a different conversation when when I'm searching outward to try to find someone to help them. Like, hey, I think you have a problem. That's a different conversation than someone coming to me or you, Andrew, or even Bebe coming to us and asking like for help
Mhm.
when they've come to the decision that they have a problem. So I think that's where you come into a little bit of a conflict when it comes to like speaking gigs or
Mm.
the podcast and stuff because we do say in our program like it's attraction rather than promotion, which is an interesting juxtaposition to like the podcast because it's like we're not promoting AA, we're not spokespersons for AA, but I think what Andrew and I are trying to do is show like what working a 12-step program and what doing all this stuff can do for you in your life. And I think that's like the big switch that happened for me is when I joined my home group that I'm a part of now, which actually shout out to Bebe. He's the only friend that I've ever taken to a meeting, which is pretty sick. That was a really awesome experience. I'll never forget that. We'll have to hit another, but a part of that meeting is that there's a lot of older dudes in there with a lot of time. And in terms of attraction rather than promotion, I looked at them and their lives and heard what they said, and I was like, I want that. And that's like a big switch that happened for me is like I wanted what they had, and we say a lot of that too in the program, like seeing what a hard worked program looks like. It looks like having a family again, having kids, happy, a good job, successful in what you want to do. And that was like a big switch for me, I think too, like
Mhm.
looking at it like that. But we know we were talking about earlier, Bebe, about trying to relate this like podcast specifically to a more of like everyone. And so
Mm.
in terms of like talking about this is not so much this is not just catered to alcoholics and addicts in and out of recovery. There are a lot of principles and stuff like that we talk about that are in 12 step that are applicable to everyone.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, I mentioned this before I came on. But yeah, like, I'm a little behind on the podcast, but I've watched a good amount of them, and a lot of like the life advice, the meditation, like the 12 steps, all that stuff. I think even if you're not an addict or trying to get into recovery, I think that living that recovery life where you're kind of giving yourself a schedule and you're becoming a lot more introspective, I think that has a lot of benefits for just people in general, and just kind of figuring out where their problems are coming from, like why they're thinking or feeling a certain way, and then um, trying to resolve any issues in that mindset or in their feelings. Like for example, I guess early on you guys had an episode about I think resentments,
Mm.
and kind of basically like I remember Mitch was telling a story about him just not liking someone and just coming up with a story about why he didn't like that person, and it just wasn't true. He just kind of convinced himself that you know he would just get mad at this person or not like this person. And I think that a lot of people just out there in the world, um, throughout their day, they're just gonna feel like pissed off or irritated or whatever, and they're just gonna kind of blame it on some external factor when in reality there is a reason why it's happening. And I think that what you guys are saying, the 12 steps, like thinking inwards, reflecting on your day, on your mindset, I think that allows you to kind of really target why you're feeling a certain way, and then resolve it from there. Right. For example, a couple months ago, I was feeling like really stressed out because there were just some sort of there's some faculty beef going on over here that was affecting the students, and it was really stressing me out. And I was just getting really irritated, easily irritated, like for a week. And the first couple of days, I just could not figure out why am I feeling this way? Like, why am I getting pissed off all the time? And it was like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, well, there's a reason why I'm feeling pissed off, and it's because because of A, B, and C. And so I took that and kind of just did some meditation, just thought it inwards, just took some deep breaths, told myself that this is kind of a short-term issue. It's not gonna disappear, but there are things that I can work through during this week that are gonna make my life easier. And I think a lot of what you guys are saying on your podcast can help people just in general, not just addicts or people trying to get into recovery.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I also like you talked a little bit before, and I think not without not in a malicious way, but because what we know is what Mitch and I know in is recovery. Like that's what we live in. That's both of our professions are centered in. Um, a lot of our day-to-day life is centered in that. I think for one get tunnel vision, right? Like that this podcast and the message and the lessons are all for addicts and alcoholics, and I don't think that's the case. And I thank you for bringing that to my attention at least. And I think I got a couple questions that I want to hear from you on. Number one, I do want to know what it was like to be in a meeting, like kind of
Yeah.
like what that was like. So that, and then I also want to know because we can go into the steps and we can talk specifically about all right, well, this is going to be good for a normal person here, and these principles can be used by a non-alcoholic in this way, and we could go into that. But I do want to know for you, because you've talked a lot about scheduling, organization, and those type of things. I want to know, specifically where you are. I think it's very important for our listeners to know, what kind of individual that they're dealing with when they're listening to here. But I want to know what the transition was like for you, from college to Purdue, and what kind of difficulties came up, and how sticking to those kind of core principles that you have, and that root of organization and scheduling and regimentation and all of that kind of helps. But I do want to know how that meeting was.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I think this was almost a year ago. I went and visited Mitch, and he asked if I wanted to go to a meeting. So I'm like, sure, yeah. So I just sat in, and from the very start, I think it was just the first thing that hit me was how real everything was. And I don't know if I can get into any specifics, but it's just these people have a lot of wisdom and they've experienced a lot of things. And, I didn't really see any young people as young people, as many young people as, I guess, I don't know. I kind of expected there to be more older people there, but all these people, forget how many years sober, but some of them were going on decades, and they just had so much experience with, I guess, different problems or issues in their life, how they resolved it, and they're just kind of speaking from the heart. And there was just no bullshit. And I think that was what really struck me, as not surprising, but just kind of changed my perspective a little on addiction, AA, that whole community, that these people, they experience real things, and they've had to kind of dig into themselves and get through it. And that program has really helped them be able to do that, kind of develop that mindset and perspective and the inner strength to be able to deal with those kind of problems. And yeah, it was just very real. No bullshit. Yeah, everyone was there because they wanted to be there. They wanted to learn from everyone else. They wanted to sit there and listen. I kind of got the sense that no one was there for themselves, really, or at least the more experienced people in that group. They were there to help the newer people in the group. Were just in general help people and not relive their experiences, but kind of give perspective on their experiences, so that younger people won't make maybe the same mistakes or have to go through the same things that they went through. And so, yeah, I really appreciated Mitch. I really appreciated you for bringing me to that meeting, because it kind of opened my eyes and brought me into a different kind of world, and made me change my perspective on addiction and alcoholism, and that everything that goes along with that. So, yeah, thank you for bringing me, first of all.
What were you expecting going in?
I honestly I don't really know. I don't know what I was expecting. Because you see, like, in the media or like on TV shows and whatever, they do scenes with AA meetings and everything, and it's kind of just like a whole awkward bunch of discussion. And first of all, I don't think that any sort of TV show is doing AA any justice with those scenes. But yeah,
it's always in like a high school gymnasium with
yeah,
chairs in a circle. It's what it is every time.
yeah.
We're never in a gym. I've never been in a meeting in a gymnasium.
Yeah. Well, this one was in a church, so
yeah,
that's
pretty
typical.
cool. Yeah, but I wasn't really expecting much. I just kind of wanted to go in there with an open mind and get some experience from words of wisdom from the people in that meeting. And so I will tell you that I wasn't expecting what I went into, for sure. It was just not in a bad way, in like a good way.
So moving now into your own experience, right? And I think before the episode, we went back and forth a little bit, and we kind of wanted to talk about the transition period, right? From college to, the real world, so to speak. And I think you had some ideas on some of the difficulties that people may face. And I think this kind of ties into, that the principles of this program and of recovery aren't just for people who struggle with the disease of addiction and alcoholism. I think it can be used, and you can describe what you were really kind of going for, but can be used for anyone in any sort of situation that is new and uncomfortable and perhaps overwhelming. So I want you to go into that, what that experience was like for you, where you are now, what kind of tools you use. I mean, you talked about it a little bit when you had that struggle with the faculty, but I'd be really, really curious to hear that from you.
Yeah. So, as Mitch said, I was a member of the swim and dive team at Denison, and so I guess
monster. Absolute. Let me real quick. Let me just clarify that this kid was an absolute monster, because I don't know if he's gonna say it. Absolute demon, like swam whatever, could swim all the strokes, could swim all the events except for the mile. And
except for the mile, yeah.
And just like absolutely like set the tone in terms of like a dog behavior, grinding every day in practice. We had amazing practices together, and like by our senior year, like had just an absolute unit of a team of like highly motivated individuals, and a lot of it came, fell downhill starting with him. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Now you can go be humble.
Yeah, and I will be. But yeah, so I mean, the entire time I was at Denison, I mean, from middle school, high school, whatever, it was just very structured lifestyle, because that's all I was doing was swimming. And so it was like, morning practice, doubles, afternoon practice, all that for well over like a decade of my life. And so that was like all I was used to, basically. And so, right, you have this very structured training schedule that you're basically forced to follow, and you have to kind of fit around your own personal goals, like your school, all that. You kind of had to fit that around your schedule. And so basically what I had to do was Anytime I needed to do homework or classwork or whatever, or take some time to myself, I kind of had to fit that within the schedule of my training. And so that worked out really well at Denison. You know, good time management, basically had my goals all aligned. I knew where I wanted to be, and I knew what I had to do to get there. So I, have your end goal, say like nationals or 4.0 GPA, whatever, and then you take your steps backwards. You kind of have to create a timeline or a series of steps for yourself and work backwards from that end goal. And so that's kind of what I did at Denison, to see the kind of success that I did. And that wasn't without the help of, the entire team, all my friends, right? Like you, Mitch, Money, Steve-O, right? The whole team. And so I think having a group of people that allows you to stay on your schedule, that a group of people that holds you accountable was really helpful for me in keeping myself accountable and keeping myself disciplined. And then once I graduated, because, Andrew, I don't know if you were in the same graduating year, but Mitch and I graduated 2020. So right when COVID all started, we got sent back home. And I think that's kind of, for me, that's where it started to go a little downhill in terms of sticking to a routine or keeping myself disciplined, because, you couldn't really go outside. And everyone else that had held me accountable and, helped me stay disciplined were, hundreds of miles away. And so that summer, all I did was play Warzone. And yeah, didn't really do much that summer, but I started school that fall actually at Purdue. Got into the mechanical engineering program. So I'm doing a lot of cool research with rockets and stuff. But
he's a rocket engineer.
He's a rocket
scientist.
But yeah, when I started here, right, there was really no one else around that could sort of help me stick to a schedule. It was kind of all on my own. And so I had to relearn, and I'm still doing that, like even today, like relearn how to put myself into a schedule, set my own goals, and keep myself accountable, and stay disciplined. And I saw this video the other day. I think it was an Instagram reel, but I think it was David Goggins on a Joe Rogan podcast. But I mean, this little quote that he said, it was like, people don't have trouble being motivated to do something. Like people always say like, oh, like I don't have any motivation today, I can't get any work done. No, they have a problem with being disciplined. Like it doesn't matter. What he said was that it doesn't matter how motivated you are, as long as you have the discipline to get yourself up in the morning and keep going. And so that kind of really stuck out to me. And so I've been trying to keep myself disciplined, get up in the morning, go work out, go to lab, do work, whatever, to make sure that I'm feeling productive every day and getting to where I want to be. But the whole foundation for all that for me is having an end goal. Like, where do I want to be in 2 years or 3 years? And I just have to every day just remind myself that what I'm doing today is helping me get to that end goal. And so we kind of did a lot of that at Denison, Mitch and I, on the swim team, right, where we were just kind of taught how to envision your end goal and then live through the everyday process, and just learn to live in that moment in the present day, and remind yourself that every day is getting you closer to that end goal. So yeah, I mean, it's been kind of tough just being out here by myself, trying to get that done. But we're making it through. There are some days where it's like just lay in bed for an hour, don't really do much. Other days feeling really, really motivated to do something. And, I think that's just part of life. You're not going to have your best day every day. You're not going to have your worst day every day. It's kind of like an up and down roller coaster. And then one of my friends also just texted me the other day, because he's starting a new job. And this was last week. He's like, I just moved into my office, this would be great. And then like 2 hours later, he's like, wow, I'm going to be doing this for the next 45 years of my life. So it's like, right, like once you get to the real world, like it's going to be a marathon, right? It's not going to be a sprint anymore, because at Denison, I think what really helped me stay disciplined and structured was the fact that, the semester was 3 or 4 months long. Each semester was 3 or 4 months long. And our whole season was like 5 or 6 months long. It's really easy to see progress, whatever it is you're doing. It could be with swimming, lifting, it could be like, progress in a relationship, right? It's really easy to see progress when your time scale is so compressed, when it's compressed down to 5, 6 months. And I'll give an example. For me, it's like I started to get back into the weight room like a year and a half ago, maybe, just to stay in shape and all that. And I'm still trying to keep training swimming wise. But because of what I'm doing in grad school, all the research and the classwork, it's like I kind of have to fit. It's like the other way around, the opposite of what it was at Denison. Instead of having to fit my school schedule with my training schedule, I had to fit my training schedule with my real life schedule now. And so it's like every little bit of time I get, like every hour I get, if I get an hour that day, I'll go work out, and whatever I get done, I get done. And I talked with the assistant coach here for the swim team, and he's the head coach now. But he gave me this really good quote at the beginning of the year when I was trying to kind of figure out training. I was kind of stressing out about not having enough time to train and do all that stuff. And he's like, look, man, like every time you go train or do something in general, you can't always want to eat the whole sandwich. You got to be okay with picking up the crumbs. And that kind of really shifted my whole perspective on everything, really. It was like, I don't have to be like, demon time, 2-hour workouts every time I go lift or swim, right? It's okay if I go there and get in a 30-minute run, walk, whatever. I'm still doing something that day. I'm just being consistent, and I'm getting in when I can. And I think a lot of what kind of fucked me up was that my time scale is now not 6 months, but 4 years. And so I have an end goal for this 4 years where I want to be. And because my time scale is so much more stretched out, I'm not going to see progress like every week. I'm not going to see progress every day because I'm not doing things every day or every week. I'm not doing the same thing. So I have to rethink what progress means in my own head, and then kind of work backwards from there. And like, it's more of like a reiterative process. You kind of have to every day kind of reevaluate, where am I at this day, and where do I want to be tomorrow, and how do I get there tomorrow? And then if I'm not there tomorrow, that's okay. Just go back and reevaluate. And that's kind of where I was relating to what you guys are saying on your podcast, is that a lot of what you guys are talking about is living in the present moment, kind of taking self-checks into yourself. What am I feeling today? How do I feel today? Why am I feeling this way? And for you guys, the end goal, there really is no end goal, right? Because it's like you want to be able to live this sober life, but it's an everyday kind of process. So it's not like, oh, the end goal is getting sober and that's it. No, it's kind of like you have to go back and revisit things, reevaluate, and keep living in the moment, which is where I've really taken from what you guys have said into my own life, just doing that and trying to live life to the fullest in this moment. Because again, like this is going to be my life for the next 45, 50 years. And so it's hard to have that end goal in sight, because a lot of people want to have this concrete notion of a goal. They want to have something that's there, that's achievable, that's tangible. And when it's not, when it's just like you want to just be living your best life, it's kind of hard to stay disciplined. It's kind of hard to keep that goal in the back of your head, because I'm a very goal-oriented person. I know Mitch is a very goal-oriented person, but on the other side, we've also learned how to live and trust the process, live through the process. And so that's why I think that, Mitch, Andrew, you guys are seeing a lot of success with what you guys are doing, is because you're able to live in that present moment. You're able to take things day by day, step by step, and reflect introspectively and really dig down into what's going on in your mind at any particular time.
Well, we would definitely try. I don't know
Yeah,
how good we're doing about it. And I also think that when you say stuff like this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 45 years and stuff, I think you don't, for one, we don't know.
that's true. Yeah.
I think like for me, when you say that, that gives me anxiety. Like, am I going to be working in recovery for the next 45 years? I don't know. I think that like some of that is good to be doing, and in terms of like you're saying goal setting and like time stamping, like this is a 4 year, it's bigger than a condensed 6 months, and like that stuff for me is like it's whatever scale you're gonna put it on. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Imagine your time scale being the next hour. Like time
Yeah.
scale out your whole life in the next hour, or for the next 5 minutes. I think like that I think I did. I think I used to be very much like with swimming especially. This is what I want by the end of the year. This is what I want by the end of my 4 years. These are the accolades, the achievements, all that, stuff like that. But for me now, I think like putting things on time scales like that, to making them, to the more detail I add to them, I think for me uh adds a pressure and a uh I think what's found best for me is in terms of discipline is showing up and doing what I know I need to do now, and that those things, my goals will be created for me. So like in terms of, I don't know what I'm going to want in 40 years. I don't know what I'm going to want in 1 year. My passion may change, and because of that, I think that if I continue to do what makes me happy currently, that that will inevitably take me to a place where I'm fulfilled. Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
not
Oh
really,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like so I think that's interesting. But I think like the whole idea of discipline and showing up has been like I has been like really helped change my life around, in terms of, if I tell you I'm going to do something, because like Andrew and I joke about and there's a joke just in AA of being inconsistent and like showing up late or missing stuff or promising I'm going to do something and then not doing it. I mean, I know for a fact that I did a lot of that at Denison when I was still earlier in recovery, not working a program. I would say I would do it and not do it for a lot of stuff. But I think like recently in the last couple months, like showing up to work early, doing everything that is and more that's expected of me, and then showing up to my swim lessons, doing those, showing up to the gym and doing that because I know I love doing that, and then just doing those things, that stuff stacks so sneakily to where you get to a point where like it's ingrained to an extent that it's hard to take you out of it then,
Yeah. Yeah. Like it
like
turns
then
into a habit.
it just becomes what you do, right? And like that's helped me so much. I learned a lot of that from you, Steve-O, some of the other boys, and just people in the program too, just showing me like what that consistency can like. My sponsor told me the more structured you can be, like you'll probably end up having more free time. And I was like, what the hell does that Yoda quote mean? And then I was like, had a more structured life. And then you really do just like soak up the free time in between that you do have then after that. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
like structure doesn't have to be like, oh, at 10:30 I'm gonna make a cup of coffee. At like 11 I'm gonna
right,
go,
right.
like it can be anything from like today I'm gonna do this one thing, and how I'm gonna get it done, that's up in the air. But if we, as long as we can get this done, then we can get it done. And so I totally agree with what you're saying. And I'm not saying, okay, to kind of trap yourself in your mind when you think I'm going to be doing this for the next 45 years. I'm just more like, that's more along the lines of what I was trying to say was more along the lines of, now after college that your life is going to be a lot more stretched out in terms of the time that you have. You have a lot of time to do a lot of things. And for me personally, I need kind of concrete goals to keep in the back of my mind to be able to set those steps along the way. And if that end goal changes, then that changes. But along the way, I need some, like a placeholder there for the moment, just for me to be able to get up to that point or live every day trying to go for that goal. So it's not like I know this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 50 years, and this is exactly what I'm going to be doing. It's not like that. It's exactly like you say, like, 2 or 3 years from now, like I might be working at McDonald's. I don't know, it's like,
You get some good deals.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, for me, I need to have those goals just to keep in the back of my mind to keep me structured.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
again, like every person is different. Like, like you don't, right? Like you just said, you don't like putting those concrete goals there that far down the line because you know that you're living every day in the moment, that things just change and you're just kind of going along with the flow. And it's just more about finding what works for you. And that just works for me.
Amen to that. I like to shoot from the hip, baby. I mean, I got some loose
Yeah.
ideas of where I want to be. Like, do I want to, be a counselor? Do I want to have my own house? Do I want to do speaker stuff? Do I want to quit all my jobs and go all in on the podcast? Do I want to, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah. Hey,
I'm
but
just
I mean,
kind of,
you don't gotta figure that out right now.
yeah, I'm just new boo goofing. How about you, Andrew?
We're all new but goofing.
I mean, this podcast is a good metaphor for life for me. Like we have a loose fucking idea every time we come on here of what we're gonna do, and then usually it takes a turn and we're talking about something completely different. Like, and that's my life right now. Is I got a loose idea of where I want to be, and I follow certain steps every day to like get me in the headspace where I can achieve if I want to, and if that's the next indicated step, that goal. But a lot of the times it pivots. I mean, you guys know, like nothing is.
Mhm.
All of our best laid plans usually go to shit in some way. Like, and that's where living in the present moment is the gift. Like, and that's why I love that Mitch named this podcast Present Moment Recovery, and this whole program that we have now. Like, because that, like, living moment to moment doesn't mean we're just like living, frivolously, not caring, not making plans, not scheduling, but within all of that schedule and then that regiment and that discipline, we also like have the mindset of like things could change in an instant, and am I going to be okay with that, or am I going to let it blow me up? Because things change in an instant all the fucking time.
Mhm.
Um, so I love the way that we've named this, and I really love your message today, baby, because it's grounded me a little bit. Um, just to know like that this stuff that we talk about on this podcast is not just for us, man. Like it's not just for people like us. That's what we geared it toward in in our original plan. But living in the moment, being fully attuned to our emotions, being fully attuned to our desires and our shortcomings and all the things that make us tick. I mean, that's a recipe for, a day to day, a successful life. So yeah, I don't know. I'm blown away by your wisdom, man. I don't know if you knew, but you just went on like a tear for like 8 minutes, and it was like it felt like it was about 2 seconds long because you had me
Yeah.
captivated. But yeah, man, it's been great hearing you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I just kind of say things.
You're a
So
rocket
I don't,
scientist.
yeah, I don't really
Rocket
know how it
scientist.
sounds. But yeah, I'm glad that, you got something out of what I was saying because I get a lot of what you're saying. I always try to put myself in the position of a learner where I'm just trying to absorb information and experience from people around me,
Mhm.
um, and just try and relay that message in terms of what works for me, what I think could work for a lot of other people. And I think what you guys are doing is great stuff. And yeah, I mean, of course, like you don't have to make this uh, targeted towards everyone, right? You made this podcast, this program to target towards people with addiction, people trying to get into recovery. But what I wanted to say was that even as someone who I don't classify myself in that category, like I can still get something out of what you guys are saying because it's more along the lines of just general like life advice and how to live a better life where you're just aware and present in your everyday life.
Oh yeah, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. And I also appreciate your constant support of the podcast, and even more so, I appreciate your support of me over the like we've known each other for shit, 6, 7, 8 years,
Yeah,
something like
dude. Oh
that.
yeah.
Which is nuts.
Long
We're
time.
getting turning into old men here, but
Yeah,
I got a back injury and everything. But
dude.
no, but
Yeah.
seriously, thank you so much. You know how I feel about you as a friend and really family. So can't thank you enough for coming on and yeah, it's been dope to listen and talk with you and hear your perspective on it too, because and just listen, I didn't get to address it earlier, but your perspective on going into the meeting was awesome to hear. And that was a pretty awesome moment for me to share that with you. So thank you for that, my boy. And
Yes, sir.
thank you to everyone listening. Episode 42. Um I'm pretty sure 99.9% sure we'll keep coming back.
I'll
Yes,
keep
sir.
coming back.
All right.
Thank you, baby.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Forrest, thank you for having me.
baby.
Yep. Love being on this. Thank
Two
you.
Roberts.
Yes, sir.
You,
Two
Roberts.
Roberts.
Yep. Oh, yeah.